A young girl named Esther saw someone walk past her. She noticed a pair of black wings behind the person and wondered if it was a black angel. However, she eventually saw a group of crows surrounding the person, causing his view to be obscured, and he bumped into her. Dietrich immediately came over and confronted the man, asking what he was trying to do to Esther. He then told Esther to go home as it was almost night and dangerous. They later found out that this strange man was actually a priest known as Father Abel Nightroad. At the Catholic church called St. Matthias Church, the caretaker, Vietz, welcomed him, mentioning that he had just come from Rome. Vietz was relieved that Father Abel Nightroad arrived before nightfall, as the area was quite dangerous and covered in true darkness. Vietz then proceeds to call Esther, who is a sister at the church, to take their guest to his room. Esther came out to meet the guest, and it turned out it was the same Esther he bumped into earlier on his way to the church. He was surprised because he had thought Esther was a boy by the way she dressed up earlier, but was punched by Esther, who stopped him from saying it out completely because she does not want Vietz to know about that. Meanwhile, Vietz is quite oblivious about it and thought that they were really getting along, so she left them to each other. Esther brought Father Abel Nightroad to his room, which turned out to be a very old room, but out of fear of being beaten up by Esther, he complimented the room, even likened it to when someone is back in a mother's womb again. Father Abel Nightroad later asked Esther why she was dressed up in men's clothes with some dangerous chemicals. She replied that she did not want to worry the bishop, as the bishop was like a mother to her. Father Abel Nightroad then experienced a stomachache, mentioning that it had been 3 days since he had last eaten. Esther hurried to get him some food, leaving him alone with his thoughts. As soon as she left, Father Abel wondered why God gave the sword to the young and weak. His mind drifted to the numerous burdens and responsibilities placed upon those who were often least prepared to bear them. In an estate, a car drove in, to which a row of soldiers welcomed the vampire, Lord Dula, who then asked if anything happened during the time he was not in Isfahan, to which the leader then replied that there is a small rebellion by the townsmen, but they have subdued it. Lord Dula then noticed Major Ikis, to which he asked if it was true that a Roman priest was sent here, which the major replied affirmative, and even stated the exact time he arrived and the church he was sent to. The leader then informed Lord Dula that the people involved in the rebellion often visited the St. Matthias Church, to which he asked if they should strengthen their defense, as they are ready to mobilize by tonight should he give the command. However, Lord Dula told them not to do anything, as the church is sacred, and for that kind of places the human strength cannot take it down. He then instructed Major Ikis to form a continuous patrol around the city. Esther was seen in the kitchen trying to make some dinner for Father Abel, to which Dietrich came over to inform her that he got an information from their ally, that Lord Dula has returned and that everyone seems to want to make a move soon, to which he asked Esther about what she plans to do. They were startled when they heard a disturbance coming from the chapel, and they hurried over there to see a vampire that had already taken the lives of several of the clergymen by draining their blood. Dietrich instantly pulled out his weapon and commanded Esther to flee, telling her that she should not disturb anyone else but Lord Dula, to whom she was devoted. He then proceeded to shoot silver bullets at the vampire, who managed to avoid the gunshots, and then went on to steal the gun from him. After that, he punched him in an effort to keep him alive and bring him back to Lord Dula. After that, he inquired of Esther the extent to which she intended to cause harm to the citizens of the town in the name of the Lord. After that, Esther responded by saying that she and her allies will safeguard Istvan from creatures of this nature. This term enraged the vampire, who decided to kill her. However, as he gets closer to her and grabbed her throat, someone fell from the attic into the chapel, and it turned out to be Father Abel. Esther tried to call out to run away. Seeing the priest, the vampire became enraged as he charged at Father Abel with a sharp fang that grew out of his back. But to everyone's surprise, Father Abel easily grabbed the fang and pulled it out, which led to a huge amount of blood gushing out of the wound. The vampire cried out in pain and realized that Father Abel was actually from the Vatican's Ministry of State. He was about to arrest the vampire, who then retaliated with the regenerative fangs, which stabbed into Father Abel, saying that his kind can regenerate, as they are known as Methuselahs. The vampire then added that if the humans can act humble, then they will tolerate their existence. At that moment, some kind of restrictions on Father Abel was released to about 40%, to which Father Abel then transformed into a being with a pair of black wings, and his eyes are red, a Crusnik. However, he really do not have any choice but to reveal this form, and his wound have been healed as well. He then revealed that since vampires feed on humans' blood, then the Crusnik feed on vampires' blood. Esther and Dietrich later woke up from where they fainted, to which Dietrich apologized to Esther for not being able to protect her well and not being capable enough to save the people who were killed. Esther told him not to blame himself for that. She then remembered Father Abel, who had already transformed back to his usual self and was munching on some sliced bread with peanut butter. He even lied to Esther when she asked about the vampire, saying that when he threatened to shoot him, the vampire ran away. Esther watched Father Abel with a mix of relief and curiosity. She sensed there was more to the story than he was letting on, but she chose not to press him for details at that moment. Lord Jula was seen in his place as he looked at the picture of his wife, as he made a promise to make those who imprisoned her pay for their crimes. Lord Jula was having a meeting with Colonel Radcon and Major Ekis about the fact that the Vatican had raised some frightening monsters, to which he wondered if Abel Nightroad is one of them. So he instructed them to eliminate Abel Nightroad, as he does not want anything to happen to his plan. At the same time, Father Abel was seen as he sneezed due to the cold weather. They were paying respects to those that were killed by the vampire. The funeral had finished an hour ago, but Esther was seen as she was still praying, to which Dietrich told him that Esther always says that Estavan is cold and the days are short, so one should at least send their prayers to the dead while it's still bright. Dietrich talked about his past. His family was Germanicus, and his parents were killed by vampires. The first time he saw her, she was like this, praying for his parents and him. That was the time he decided to protect her in the future no matter what, and yet he is not capable enough. Esther walked up to the bishop with a determined look on her face. Her voice was steady, but with a sad undertone. She said she was going to leave the church and go to Jula's house to fight the vampires. She couldn't stand to see anyone else get hurt, and she knew that if nothing was done, the church could be attacked again. Even though there were risks, she made the choice because she wanted to protect her friends and her faith. The bishop knew how serious her decision was, so she stepped forward and gave her a gentle hug. She knew how important Esther's job was and how brave she had to be to do it. Even though the bishop was a kind and strong woman, she reluctantly agreed that this path was important. And then she told Dietrich and Father Abel to watch over Esther while she was on the trip. The bishop finally let them go after Esther promised to come back safely. As Esther and her allies were about to leave, the tranquil atmosphere of the church was shattered by a sudden, deafening explosion. The ground trembled, and the air filled with dust and debris. Panic ensued as the churchgoers scrambled for safety, their cries echoing through the sacred halls. In the chaos, Esther turned to see Bishop Vietz lying motionless on the ground, the life already drained from her body. Shock and grief gripped Esther's heart, but there was no time to mourn. Father Abel, ever the protector, grabbed her arm and pulled her to safety, his eyes filled with urgency and determination. Dietrich, his face pale but resolute, took Esther's hand and led her away from the devastation. As they made their escape, the sound of gunfire and further explosions echoed behind them. It was clear that the church was under attack by well-armed assailants. As they fled, Esther glanced back to see Father Abel standing firm, facing the attackers with unwavering courage. Among the chaos, she caught a glimpse of Major Ikis and Colonel Radcon, leading their soldiers in the assault. The realization hit her like a blow. This was a coordinated attack, designed to strike at the heart of their sanctuary. Father Abel was surprised that the bombing was caused by the city's army, who are supposed to protect, not to destroy. Colonel Radcon became enraged by what Father Abel said, so he asked Major Ikistres to go after Esther and Dietrich while he would deal with Father Abel. However, Father Abel told him that they should both face him together since they might get busy dealing with him. This prompted Colonel Radcon to ask Major Ikis that they should attack Father Abel together, to which Ikis agreed and then set their firepower at Father Abel. Meanwhile, the other army surrounded Father Abel as well, who then immediately asked for God's forgiveness as he released the restrictions on him, turning to a Crusnik. At the same time, Ikis had already entered battle mode, to which he unleashed a barrage of shots towards the direction of Father Abel. However, he had indirectly killed the army behind Abel. This shocked Colonel Radcon as he realized that Icus was actually a traitor and was working for the Vatican's Ministry of State. As Colonel Radcon wanted to attack Icus in rage, he got kicked squarely in the face by Icus, who then explained that he was never on his side since the start and that there is one thing that goes against the original plan, which is that he does not remember being ordered to bomb the church. Colonel Radcon suddenly brought out his gun, which he shot at Icus, who immediately put up his guard and turned out to be a machine and not human, to which Colonel Radcon was dumbfounded. Icus then reveals that he was being sent from the Vatican Ministry of Special Operations with the codename Gunslinger. After dealing with Colonel Radcon, Father Abel informed Icus that the vampire captured yesterday and the soldiers just now were all been left in charge of the Iron Maiden to San Angelo. Father Abel then apologized to Icus about the trouble caused today and then asked him if he was the one who asked the citizens nearby to hide, to which Icus replied that he was not the one. Meanwhile, he expressed his thoughts about Father Abel not to reveal his power in front of humans and even commended him for protecting the citizens within the vicinity of battle. He added that he will go to the city to help get it under control as the Marquess of Hungary's plan is still in motion. He implored Father Abel to move quickly to stop it. Meanwhile, Esther was seen outside of the burning church as she held the cross, thinking about Beats, to which she burst into tears. Father Abel then came over to meet her and was relieved that Dietrich indeed brought her to a safe place. He comforted her about the loss of a motherly figure to her and told her that he is with her so she should not cry again. There was a second moon that arose in the sky after Armageddon, and it was referred to as the vampire moon. When Father Abel, Esther, and Dietrich arrived at the castle of Jula, a heavy pillar of lightning struck the mountain in front of them. Father Abel urged them to hurry since the lightning was causing the mountain to be struck. While everything was going on, Jula was observed in a room that contained a picture of his wife. He had been looking forward to this day since he intended to eliminate everyone who has been working against him. As soon as Esther and the others arrived at the location where Jula was, they inquired about the pillar of light that they had just witnessed. Jula responded by stating that it was the Star of Sorrow, that it was a weapon that humbles the ignorant masses from its lofty height among the stars, and that it was a star of hope that his wife had left for him. It was well known to him that Esther would have interpreted the pillar of light as a manifestation of God's wrath against the church because of its destruction. Esther grew outraged and launched an arrow at Jula, who just caught it in his fingers and then sent it back at Esther, aiming to murder her. However, Father Abel swiftly intervened and stopped the arrow from hitting Jula. The next thing he did was inquire of Jula whether or not he was the one who had caused his colleague, the axe field operator Crusnik, some trouble. Following that, he inquired of Jula whether he would be willing to disable the Star of Sorrow, stating that it had never been intended to be utilized as a weapon, and that Jula's wife would never want the star to be utilized in such a manner. After that, Jula responded by saying that he did this because the Terrans of the Vatican have a horrible temperament because they hunt them down in a cold and determined manner as they chant phrases of love, and that the priests of the Vatican were the ones who were responsible for the death of his wife, Maria, by burning her. At that moment, Father Abel was taken aback by the news. Jula proceeded by saying that his wife had been murdered for no other reason than the fact that her husband is a vampire. In response, Father Abel proclaimed that this was the final night for the Vatican and then inquired of Dietrich whether the second shot had been positioned appropriately. It was revealed that Dietrich had deceived Esther on account of the fact that he was truly on Jula's side. He responded with the coordinates of the target, which was located in the middle of Rome. Because Esther was so taken aback by the revelation that Dietrich was, in fact, a traitor, she dropped her crossbow without even realizing it. Dietrich then handed her his gun and held it in her hands while accusing her of lying about everything, including the narrative of his parents being murdered by vampires. Dietrich said that everything had been a lie. Then Father Abel questioned Dietrich about the reason he had betrayed Esther, to which Dietrich responded that he had just done it because it was enjoyable. After that, Jula made fun of her for trusting a partner who turned out to be a vampire. Esther became upset and shot at Jula, but the bullet instead pierced Father Abel, which caused Dietrich to confess that she is being controlled like a puppet is being controlled by strings. After that, he exerted his hold over her to cause her to fire another shot at Father Abel in an attempt to murder him. After that, Dietrich parted ways to put the idea into action. However, Father Abel assaulted Jula and shot him, which prevented him from carrying out his plan to drink Esther's blood. Esther is overjoyed to discover that Father Abel is still alive. He then informed her that he cannot abandon her, and that he cannot leave her alone. He then assured Esther that he is well and can cope with his wounds while he dealt with Jula. He then told Esther that it is not over since she needs to go after Dietrich because only he can stop the Star of Sorrow. He also assured her that he would deal with both of them. Jula grew infuriated as he recovered from the wounds, and he then converted his hand into a long fang. He then used this fang to attack Father Abel, but Father Abel easily avoided it due to the activation of his powers as Crusnik, and he even severed the arm that had been transformed. In the process of observing Father Abel's transformed appearance, Jula was taken aback to discover that the Vatican had a unique creature that they held in their possession. Father Abel then requested that Jula hand over his firearm because he is now being held for questioning in connection with a possible murder and insurrection. On the other hand, Jula insisted on continuing to fight, and Father Abel responded by telling him that he would not be able to defeat him. He also threatened to cut off Jula's second arm if he did not listen to him. However, Jula launched another assault as he closed in on Father Abel, who was holding his one and only arm. He stabbed Father Abel in the chest with his severed arm, stating that he could not play fair because he wanted to survive, and he asked Father Abel to stay out of the way of the two of them. Jula asserted that he would bring the Star of Sadness to Rome, and that the very center of mankind would be reduced to ashes with his destruction. It was for his wife that he was carrying out all of these actions. After that, he pierced Father Abel with numerous long fangs, thereby assuring that he would die. On the other hand, Father Abel then asked Jula, as he was dying, what he would do after he had taken revenge on his wife, and he explained that vengeance is nothing more than being an empty self. Then Jula charged at him in order to deliver the strike that would kill him. During the time that Esther is searching for Dietrich and wondering where he is, she is seen. The fact that she came to inquire about the self-destruct code for the Star of Sadness was something that Dietrich was aware of. Esther begged him to tell her that she would do everything to have the information. After that, he made the request for her to remain with him, claiming that he exerts control over her emotionally by manipulating her neurological system. In one instance, it has the potential to drug her and give her the impression that 10 guys are sexually assaulting her at the same time. However, he assured her that he would not engage in any behavior that is as extreme as that. After offering his apologies for going too far, he proceeded to hand her the code for the self-destruct function of the Star of Sorrow. He then told her that he had actually liked her before leaving. Following that, Esther ran back to the location where Father Abel was, recalling what she had seen on the day that they had first met, which was a black angel. When Jula saw Father Abel turned into a man with black wings, she was taken aback and became curious about whether or not he was an angel or a demon. While he was surprised to realize that Father Abel was sucking his blood through the wings, he had the impression that he was a monster. He could see that Father Abel was doing this. Next, Father Abel inflicted serious injuries onto Jula. As Esther approached Father Abel, she informed him that she possessed a self-destruct code. In response, he inquired as to whether or not she was capable of operating a computer. In response, she stated that she is proficient with keyboards, and that, with the assistance of the bishop, she had obtained the ability to use a typewriter. Esther immediately entered the code into the computer, where she saw a video of Dietrich. Dietrich told her that if she is watching the video, then it indicates that she has been tricked by him once more. The reason for this is that the code that she had just entered is a code that changes the target to Astavan. The countdown is currently at 30 seconds. Esther was so taken aback by this information that she felt as though there was no way out of the situation. However, Father Abel did not lose up and instead used his identity as the Aerospace Unit Commander of the United Nations to obtain the self-destruct code and command in order to self-destruct the program. Esther, who was taken aback by the recent events, inquired about the identity of Father Abel in order to obtain more information. Meanwhile, an injured Radcon was seen as he suddenly charged into the place trying to attack Esther and Father Abel, to which he shot at them. But he got killed by Trez, who was chasing him from behind. Trez explained that Radcon had actually escaped. Meanwhile, Jula actually blocked the shop for Esther, who was surprised by this since she thought that they were enemies. After then, Jula explained that he had only intended to test Esther's capabilities, but that he had gone ahead and exceeded his expectations. He was able to recognize a great deal of comparable characteristics in both Esther and his deceased wife, Maria, to whom he had given his last breath. Trez notified Father Abel that the train will leave in 820 seconds after he was seen the following day admiring the sunny weather, and said that it is a beautiful day to set out. Father Abel mentioned that it is a great day to set off. On the other hand, he was taken aback when he saw that Esther had brought luggage with her. She then stated that there are some things that she wants to learn, as there are a lot of mysteries that she is perplexed about, including the true identity of Father Abel. For this reason, she is going to Rome, and she inquired as to whether or not it is okay for her to do so. She asked him what exactly he was. Trez then confirmed that it is acceptable for her to accompany them, and he reminded them that the train is scheduled to depart in 485 seconds. Immediately after hearing this, they sprinted in the direction of the train station. As two individuals in a multi-story building look down on the routine activities that take place on a daily basis, one of them begins a conversation by stating that the Marquis of Hungary, also known as Jula Kdr, has tragically passed away, and that he believes the person responsible for his death was a priest from the Vatican Catholic Church. The second guy responded by saying that there is a reason why the priests of the Vatican are referred to as the god of carnage. This was in response to the fact that he abhorred the Vatican, which was obvious to him. Father Nightroad, his junior, a male, and his sister Esther Blanchette were among the passengers on a moving train. Father Nightroad was becoming increasingly bored as they all sat down individually. During the train ride, he made the decision to open the window of the train. However, his junior and sister Esther were opposed to the idea, stating that there is a high probability of adversaries in the vicinity or attempting to take a shot at them, and therefore he had to return to his seat. A few minutes later, he proposed that they should all have a drink together, and that all they need to do is sit until the train reaches its destination. He was still looking to them for their support, as he did not want to drink by himself due to the fact that a young girl ran into their cabinet when they were on the train. When Father Trez got closer to her, he asked her why she had come to their cabinet and what would have prompted her to do so. All of them were surprised by his actions. She yelled at them, asking them if they were bounty hunters, and she pointed to her sister Esther, asking if she was the princess that they were attempting to protect. The little girls were still fascinated by their attire, which included a gun and a knife around their waists. She responded that it was her way to escape her mother, who was presumably in the near cabinet of the same train. Father Nightroad was amazed by the sharp organization of such a young child. When he inquired why she was there again, she said that it was her way to get away from her mother. According to what she admitted herself, her name is Itoil, which literally translates to stars. Temporarily, Tara became aware of movement when, despite the fact that Trez was still occupied with the girls, they were taken aback when, before they realized it, a vampire had entered the moving train and entered their cabinet section, demonstrating that he had come to them for a specific occasion. In addition, before they could take any action to protect themselves from the vampire, he held the girl while covering her face with one hand and threatened that if they did not comply with what he wanted to say, then they would feel the consequences of their actions. Itoil, being a young girl, was unaware of the vicious nature of the vampire. While she was being held by the vampire, she continued to speak to him, assuring him that she would never beg him for anything. All of the talking was a distraction that was created to divert the attention of the vampire as Sister Esther rescued Itoil from his grasp. Before anyone knew it, the two Vatican priests had taken advantage of the situation and moved closer to him at a point-range distance, pointing guns to his head. As a result, they began the interrogation by asking him what he was doing here, on board their train. However, he was able to defend himself by moving further away from them while remaining inside the same train cabinet. He explained to them that he had come specifically for them because he believes that they were the ones who were responsible for the death of the Marquis Jula Kadar. When still talking with the Vatican priest, a vampire came in through the window making two Vatican priests. He told the vampire that he was the one that killed Marquis Jula Kadar, as all of them was surprised to hear that, Eve let him know that he came to meet him because he has been making too much information about the person that killed him, and somehow he is getting closer to him. According to what he stated, he killed for a cause that he didn't like, such as sharing with any of them now or never, despite the fact that he was a nice vampire to him and had been helping him when he wasn't sucking blood. Therefore, he, Crusnik, needs to show up in order to make things simpler for him. Despite the fact that this led to an increase in tension, the vampire tried to combat him before they knew anything about it after having a talk with them. However, he was successful in a way that was both good and faster. In order to ensure everyone's safety, the passengers in one cabinet are required to relocate to the front of the train. After everything that has occurred, he flew away as a vampire via the same window that he came in by. He informed the Vatican priest that they will see him again at a later time because he has not come for them this time around. Upon examining the surroundings, Father Nightroad and Father Tres, together with their sister Esther, discover that their luggage, which included the train receipt, has been misplaced. They then board the train to leave them off. Because of this, individuals are responsible for their own transportation to wherever they are going. In a very dark room, there is a man standing up and looking at himself in the mirror. There is also a woman lying down on a sofa chair. Both of them are wearing black jackets. The conversation was started by her asking the guy a question. Despite the fact that he did not respond to her, she started the conversation by stating that there was a story about a sleeping beauty. If he has ever heard about it, he has not answered her. She was once a princess who, by accident, got herself pricked by a needle from a sewing machine, which led to her spending 100 years sleeping in a castle of thorns. She has stated that every time she thinks about that story, she always wonders what happened to her and what caused her to sleep in such a manner. Once again, we are back with the traveling priest from the Vatican, Sister Esther Blanchett, and the machine, Father Tre, who has just missed out on the opportunity to travel to Rome by train. The three of them are now confronted with a bush that is located close to them. They had inquired about the possibility that traveling through it would make their journey more expedient than traveling along the highway. However, they were surprised to discover that traveling via the forest would save them approximately 45 hours compared to traveling along the highway. As they all face the forest, a variety of thoughts go through their heads. For example, the only thing that the father could think about was the bears and boar that must have been inside the forest and could have eaten them. On the other hand, Esther, the sister, was very clear that they could get lost inside the forest, which would result in them being trapped there for an eternity. She also mentioned that the forest was so dark inside that she knew something was wrong with it to begin with. Sibling Esther was given the assurance by Father Nightroad that there would be no problems whatsoever so long as the machine that they shared was functioning properly. Now, as we are inside the jungle and strolling through it, Sister Esther can't help but notice that it is utilizing the same snake that has been there ever since it was there. This is because she has been passing the same location for some time. When Father Nightroad became aware of this, he suggested that they all should sit down and spend the night where they are. He did this so that in the morning, they would be able to navigate their way through the forest very well. However, when he was the third person who was in charge of using the navigator, he stated that it was not working there. When Father Nightroad was asked by Esther why he is not worried at all, he responded that it could be because he has always been sent to a difficult location or mission. He also begged his sister Esther to let her go through this because he believed that he was the one who would cause her to experience this inconvenience. As soon as Esther noticed that Father Nightroad was not present with them, he inquired with the other Vatican priest who was present with her. He stated that he was most likely surveying the region, and she responded by saying that she was always concerned about her home. During the time when Esther was still asking questions about Rome, Father Tres whispered that he had detected activity in the forest, which caused all of them to be completely alert. The only thing that Father Tres said in response was that the employer they are going to meet there is terrifying, and that the street and other things are not as wonderful as she could have imagined them to be in her head during her imagination. Still discussing when a plant with long stems was taking Sister Esther away, the Vatican priest and Father Tres had no other alternative but to fight the plant in order to save her. However, the problem is that Father Tres and the Vatican priest have not yet seen the vampire commanding the plant. Suddenly, Father Nightroad appears to be shaking with a cold chill all over his body. Father Tres asks her what happened to him. Suddenly, they heard a voice telling them that they must leave the forest because they are Terrans, which is causing them to destroy their forest. After hearing this, Father Trez asked for more clarification on what he was saying. At the same time, both of them had their backs turned to each other, looking carefully with their guns loaded and ready to shoot anything that came their way. All of this was taking place while it was still nighttime in the forest. Father Nightroad asked the voice if it was a Methuselah, which is a mythical forest that is neither human nor vampire. Following a struggle that was fruitless, Father Nightroad instructed Father Trez to remove his sister Esther from the trees and relocate to a more safe location, giving him the opportunity to be alone. It would appear that the tree has been there for the past 500 years, waiting for Father Nightroad. This is due to the fact that they were prior lovers. However, now that she has turned into a tree, he is able to recall the forest immediately, as it was a spot that he frequently went to before it turned into a bush. After a great deal of grieving between Father Nightroad and the tree spirit tree, a shooting took place between him and Father Trez against the forest tree. As a result of the conflict, which resulted in a bullet hurting one of Father Trez's machine parts, even his sister Esther Blanchett had to come from where she was in order to assist in defeating the tree spirit. As soon as they eradicate the adversaries, Father Nightroad, who was present in the land, recalls the path that led to it now. He joyfully instructed them to follow his footsteps as he planned to guide them out of the jungle. During the gun battle against the forest tree, every member of the family, including Father Trez, Sister Esther Blanchett, and Father Nightroad, sustained injuries. In order for them to continue their journey, the sister had to personally assist them in stitching some of the injured parts of their bodies. If it weren't for Father Trez, who was a machine, he would have been able to fix himself on his own. Even after sustaining an injury, he would continue to fire until he used the bullet to sever all of the extension branches of the tree. As the trees went to ashes in their very eyes, just like snow, Father Nightroad had to pray for her soul to find love after he had defeated Nightroad's father. He prayed for her soul to find love. They continued their journey once more after Father Trez and Sister Esther Blanchett had finished their work, and they phoned Father Nightroad to come and join them on the road as soon as possible. He was so taken aback by their response that he had to run after them as he was stitching his injured body part on his route, despite the fact that they were the ones who advised him to relax and take his time in treating his injury. When one of the guys saw Sister Esther dressed as a nun in the city, he raised the sound of his motorbike. He realized that the sound kept becoming lower and lower the more he tried to boost it, which led him to realize that he had run out of gas for his motorbike. The man was still considering how he could get petrol for his motorbike when he saw the woman who was acting as the coordinator. She was holding the firearms and looking really attractive. After seeing her for the first time, he was interested in getting to know her or perhaps becoming a friend to her because in his mind she was a beautiful nun. He asked his friend if he could introduce him to her because he was interested in getting to know her after seeing her. The person she was referring to was Esther, her sister. Even she had the impression that they were talking about her simply by looking at them. Yet she did not laugh hard enough to ask them or question them. In fact, the person who was standing next to her asked her why she was acting in such an odd manner. When Trez saw her doing something on her own, he asked her if she was all right with it. In the event that she is not, he will make it a priority to correct her because she is not. The machine informed Father Nightroad that they have not yet entered Rome because of the amount of time that they have all spent in the forest that they pass, indicating that they have spent more than the hour that they believe they have spent passing the forest. Father Nightroad told Esther that they have now arrived in Rome and that she could put his mind at ease. In spite of the fact that they have not yet arrived at Vatican, Rome, Father Nightroad said that finally seeing a town after traveling through the wilderness for such a long time would allow them to be able to make effective use of or appreciate the city during the time that they will be spending there. Father Nightroad Street, ramming the street at night they reach there. According to him, the street is full of drug dealer appearing alike individuals. Bare, looking at them, they appear to be popular enough, even possibly too popular. Father Nightroad Street stated this. After taking a look at the street, they all come to the conclusion that, in contrast to other towns, they would not be able to sleep on the street. Just as they were finishing their conversation, Father Nightroad pointed to a nearby inn and suggested that they spend the night there for the sake of increased safety. Esther was overjoyed to have this sister, and she suggested that they should stay in the inn next to her because she was in desperate need of a comfortable bed in order to rebuild her strength. There is a signal or a feeling that one of them who has been sent on a mission is nearby somewhere, but closer in the same city that they are with Father. There is still thinking about the person, who he might be, and what mission he might be on. Father is still waking up towards the inn. It instantly came to meet Father Thriz to tell him about this, and he was astonished that he had mistakenly shouted her name out of astonishment, asking machine in a loud voice, "What do you mean she is gone?" Before the machine knew it, it was unable to find Sister Esther again or find her. Apparently, Sister Esther has followed someone she saw among the throng. Assuming that he is wealthy, she continued to follow that guy until she came closer to him, at which point she saw that she was following the incorrect person. Little does she realize that she has abandoned her friends while at the same time she was concerned about Dietrich. Where she was resting her back against one of the walls of the street, thinking about what had just occurred with a worried expression on her face, when a group of street guys approached her and asked if she was a prostitute because she was alone in the street at night. The males did not seem to object, even though she was wearing nun attire in order to attract more customers, those who sex for money. Regardless of the fact that she was wearing, he tells them that they have missed their opportunity with her and that they should just leave her alone. The guy is tall and black. When Sister Esther discovered that the individuals who were pursuing her had turned back in response to his command, she realized that the problem was not becoming more and more challenging and difficult. When the neighbors of the man saw her with him, they all kept asking if he was the father to her or if he was her lover, but both of them ignored them as they walked down a street that was safer. According to Esther, the guys who carried her were just helping her get away from the bad guys. She was taking her to a more secure environment. After that, the conversation between the two of them continued, with the man asking her what she was doing in the city and more at this time. She then proceeded to explain to him what caused her to become lost in the street, that the town was not always like this until the invasion of the vampire guy, known for its vicious attitude. He asked her while they were both chatting if she knew anyone in the town on whom she could rely. He said that the town had been like this before. At the same time that he was trying to comfort her by placing his hand on her, he told her that she would leave for any location she came from the following day. Suddenly, all that Esther could hear was the loud gunshot that was fired, and she had to immediately close her eyes. She was trying to slow down in order to turn her head, and as she did so, she began by hearing and then seeing the vampire that she had been told about. Looking up, there was a shot to the head of the Terrans, which were the males she was talking to. As the vampire approached with the guys following after him, he intended to kill her. However, she was taken aback when Crusnik, the machine robot that had traveled to their village with them, appeared to defend her. Crusnik had come to protect her. Father Thriz also showed up as they both shot the vampire guard until it was only him left. Upon realizing that he had quickly seized his sister Esther, he wanted to use it to defend her. But the gunslayers came to his aid and shot the vampire, who eventually managed to escape for his life. At the same time that Leon, who was also an ex-field operator, came to her rescue, she promised him that they would meet again in the future to assist them. In the moment that he was finished with that, he climbed on his bike, and after a length of time, he attempted to persuade his sister Esther to ride with him rather than with Father Nightroad and the machine. However, his sister declined to travel with him. In Rome, where they were all going, there was a nun sister named Sister Kate waiting for them as well. She had heard rumors about how beautiful Sister Esther was going to arrive, and she chose to keep counting the days until she eventually arrived, despite the fact that she had been seeing a lot of nuns.